Easy to clean, just tip it up on one end and dump the dirt out the other. But so that's all I did today.
Okay. I'm gonna check to double check some stuff on the camera, and then after that we should be good to go. All right. Okay.
Well, get you past side. I'm your director.
Okay.
Okay, good deal.
Okay. And we're just gonna ask questions and
Okay.
we can go from there. So go ahead and say your name.
Robert, usually Bob
Okay.
Gladson.
Okay.
Hey, when were you born?
Where?
When?
Oh, 2/27/21.
2/27/21, okay.
Where was this at?
Burgess, Illinois, Mercer County.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So can you take us through from when you graduated high school until you joined or got drafted?
Yeah. Well, graduated in 1939, and I was working for a wholesale grocery beverage company in Galesburg at that time. Livestock feed along with that, and when the war came along, we run out of gas, so there wasn't gas to travel. So I went to Detroit and got a job with Chrysler. It was kind of interesting. It was in, of course, a lot of new things going on up there with parts, and it was controlled materials parts. So had to check blueprints and weights of parts and so on. It was interesting, and but I didn't like office work, and so I drove a couple driveway trucks from Detroit to the coast while my wife worked a couple more weeks. Then we went back to my grandparents just till I waited until I was waiting for being drafted.
Okay.
So I worked in a sawmill for till that time, and then when I was drafted, I went up to Great Lakes, and from there Fort Knox, and had 8 weeks infantry training, 4 weeks tank training, and then went to Camp Shanks in New York, or Camp Shanks in Maryland, then went up to camp in New York, and then overseas, and went to Liverpool. We were in 5 different camps in England. Just started to move down about 5 weeks before the invasion. We moved about a week each week, and then when the invasion came, we were on near Southampton, and it was about 3 or 4 weeks after the invasion that we were over as replacements to the Tank Battalion. And of course, we interviewed there what position, gunner or tank command, or not tank commander, but gunner or driver or assistant driver, whatever. We'd had training for those things, and I'd heard so many stories about the front end of the tank, about the drivers, what happened. So I thought, well, I'd pick gunner. So I didn't think about how big a target that turret was either, but so. And we were pretty much, well, there was one platoon that was wiped out, 5 tanks. They went up to help an infantry group that had been ambushed, and they got ambushed. So we were their replacements with the 712th Tank Battalion. And I was put in First Lieutenant's tank. He'd been in soil conservation work in Nebraska. So I was pretty fortunate because he knew distance pretty well. And when we'd put the gun on a target, why, he knew it was pretty close. And so from there, we waited until the breakthrough out of the hedgerows. And I'll never forget that day. We sat on the back of our tank, we watched these planes. I think there were 3,000 or 4,000, they said, went over that day to soften things up so we could get out of those the hedgerows there in Normandy. And when that was over, why, then we just took off. You know, we had our goal, and to get behind the German lines, and we're pretty much wondered sometimes how far out we'd gotten. And one time I saw through the periscope, I could see a shadow go over. I wondered what the heck that was, but it was our Piper Cub, so they knew where we were. And so we kept moving. We passed a lot of bombed out German columns that had been on the road that the bombers had taken care of. And our goal was Le Mans in France. And pretty much one day we'd gotten into a town, and we were at the east end of the town, and the other platoon was in the west end, and we heard something was going on back there, and there was a German column that had gotten caught, and they were headed that way. And my God, there was quite a bunch of them, tanks and trucks and people. P-47s took good care of them, and our only action there was a truck loaded with barrels of gasoline come down the road. That was a pretty fiery target. And otherwise, then we continued on toward Le Mans, and we're getting close. There was a long hill with trees on both sides of the road, and the tank commander said, "There's something up there at the top of that hill. It could just look like a silhouette like that." He said, "Keep your gun on that." He gave me the yardage, and infantry was on the back of our tank. Pretty soon there was a shell burst, hit the trees above the tank. So that was all it took then. The distance must have been right, because they abandoned three. We knocked the first one out, and they abandoned the other two and took off. And then the road was clear to Le Mans. And from there, we just have to think back a little bit. We went north. We were going up toward Reims, and then this was word that the German 7th Army was behind us, and we could go up this Falaise Gap. So we were on the east side of the German 7th Army. The Canadians and Polish were on the west side. So we cut them off, and it was a sad thing for them. We were parked our tank in trees up at the top of a ridge, and it must have been probably a mile and a half at least, maybe a little further across to the other side where the Canadians were with the Poles. And in the morning, those Germans would start to go up to try to move out of there. And it was just, like I say, it was sad. It was like ducks in a shooting gallery, really. They were trapped. They couldn't get any place. We took a lot of prisoners. And then from there, we went toward Reims. We run out of gas. And it was sad there to see there was I don't know if it was 6th Armored or 4th Armored that had been ahead of us. Our job a lot of times was try to open a hole so they could get through, and they'd run out of gas, and the Germans were pretty hard on them. They'd lost an awful lot of tanks there, and then we had about probably a week or so there at Reims. So we got to visit the city some. It was interesting. Lots of old buildings and cathedrals. And from there, then we went, I think back a little bit, into Germany. Well, first we went to Metz. And that was an old fort that was pretty tough to do anything with. And we did indirect fire on Metz. And it was kind of fun back there. We parked in front of a row of apartment buildings, and there were some families there, and there was a family with a couple little blonde-haired girls, you know, and they liked to come over and visit our tanks. There wasn't anybody firing at us, you know, and we had treats for them, and they were pretty regular visitors. In fact, they asked our tank crew for dinner one night, and the granddad had been out. Food was scarce, really, too. He'd shot a rabbit. And when they prepared the rabbit, the whole rabbit, from head to the tail, was on a plate. Quite a sight. I mean, where to start? And from Metz, we went into Furweiler was the first town in Germany we went into. They didn't want us there, really. They really were tough on us. And from there, oh God, we went to, keep going.
When you said Furweiler, why, you mean the town? You mean, did you say Furweiler?
Furweiler, F-U-R-W-E-I-L.
You mean the people there weren't happy that you were there?
Well, no, the Germans were, the troops. German army wasn't.
Oh, okay.
One of those.
People,
pronounce that, you know.
Okay.
people most generally treat us pretty good. They were glad it was over.
Uh-huh. Oh,
Yeah.
so I mean, they could sense it for all practical purposes. It was over then, they knew.
What was that?
The people, you know, the French people and the German people, they pretty much knew at that point in time the war was pretty much lost.
Yeah, they were fed up with it. I think they were pretty well fed up with Hitler. And you know, they'd gotten pretty well wise to what was going on, and they couldn't afford. They were short food, gas, and just pretty tough living for them. And they treat us pretty good. Yeah. So yeah, from Furweiler, there was one town we'd gotten into that.
Well, I mean, how did that work? Did they tell you to take, for instance, Furweiler how did you get your orders?
Well, we had our goal where we were headed for, and our objective, and it was in that direction. That was one of the towns that we went through. And another one was we'd gotten into, and there wasn't any people in that town. There were a few German soldiers yet. That one time there was some fellows that had gotten into the backside of a house. There were German troops guarding the house on the front side. But there wasn't any problem. But our tank was sitting in the road. There was some trees up ahead. We had to get through that area. And the engineers had cut trees at night. And
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
and but the Germans had cut trees, and the engineers have to move them out. So finally we got through there, but there was a lot of shelling in that town. They knocked up part of our periscope off in the top of the turret in that town.
Weren't you scared? I mean, for crying out loud, you're inside the tank and they're dropping shells and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, you'd keep your head down. Those 88s had a weird sound. And then they had one called Screaming Mimi. I don't know, there's 6 or 8 of them that went off bang, 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 but they really screamed. They made a terrible sound.
And you could hear that when they were shooting at you?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you could hear those.
Shell in the air while it's coming down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, was the tank strong enough to protect you from that, or you were just lucky they didn't get a direct hit on your tank?
Oh yeah, yeah. Our tanks weren't too well protected.
Yeah. So here you are going down the center of town with all these shells going off, and just by the grace of God, one didn't hit you.
They missed it. They missed us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness.
Can you describe when the first time you got into the tank? Like what? Can you describe the tank for me?
Oh well, when I got in the turret, I was a gunner, sat on the right side, and there were controls in front of me, and then the gun was in the center. It was a 75 millimeter, which later was a 76 millimeter. Now it's way up there, and then the loader was on the left side of that. And there was an opening. There was a turret on both sides of those, and then the tank commander stood behind the gunner, and there was an opening down in the front to the driver compartment, and then the driver was on this side, the assistant driver on the other side.
So the 3 people were in the middle, and then the 2 people up front were 2 separate compartments?
Well, it was all open across the front, yeah.
So you're kind of up in the turret.
What's that?
The gunner
Gunner was on the right side.
up in the turret.
Yeah.
Okay, and the tank commander was behind you in the turret.
Mm-hmm.
And who was the other guy on the left?
On the left side, yeah, on the left side, so we could load the gun on the left side.
Okay.
Yeah. And
What kind of tank was it?
what?
What kind of tank
It
was
was
it?
M4A4. They were Shermans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They thought that I guess Patton thought that's what they needed, something fast that could, pretty mobile, and the guns were very easy to use, better than the Germans, but they just didn't have the armor to help, and didn't take much of a shell to hit the turret. Finally, they did change those a lot. Of course, now then they added an armor plate on both sides, and we got into one of those. We thought we were pretty safe because we'd had a replacement tank in the Siegfried Line area, and we'd gone down well, we're at the edge of a town, and early in the morning, and we looked down in this valley. There were a bunch of trees, and this infantry lieutenant, he was a new guy. He didn't really know much about what he was supposed to do, and we were supposed to sit there and fire down into those trees. But he said, "Well, you guys take your tanks down there." Well, they were just starting to get light. But there were German tanks down there, and they were bigger than ours, but they didn't really fire back too much. I hit them a couple times with armor piercing, but the darn thing bounced off. That was a helpless feeling. And it wouldn't do that with the guns they have today. But they went up on the other hill, and then we were there. There were 5 tank destroyers and 5 tanks around those woods, and you couldn't put your head up on the turret. They burp guns. You could hear those things go off, you know. And there were Germans around the place, but we got.
You mean the machine guns they were shooting at you?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We got them backed off finally, and then but they knocked the track off of our tank. So one of the fellas, one of these heavy ones, we thought, boy, we'll be safe in that one. He said, "I'm getting the hell out of here." So we thought, well, we'll go with him then, because ours wouldn't move. So with 3 of the 2 of us got in the turret of that one. There were 5 of us in the turret, and there was one gotten out ahead of us, but out of the 5 tanks and 5 destroyers, nobody else made it out of that place. And we got started up this hill, and we thought, boy.
Hold on. You mean that tank that you guys climbed into is the only tank that made it out?
No, the one ahead of us did.
That was the only one that made it out.
Yeah, we didn't make it out. But we got up where this bend in the road was, and we thought, boy, we got it made now. Well, they hit the rear end of that, and the shell come through the gas tank, of course, and went underneath the turret, so it didn't hurt us, but the flames followed it. It was like a furnace inside that thing, you know. I don't know how. That was the second one out. I don't know how the rest of them made it. But
so what do you do once you no longer have a tank? Where do you go?
Get out of it, you mean?
Yeah, like you're out of the tank and there's people.
Where you go?
Supposed to go?
Well, there was a ditch. I thought my pants were on fire, so I got in the ditch and I rolled a little bit, but they weren't. And there was a pillbox up ahead. I thought, well, we didn't know if it were Germans there or Americans, but finally decided there were Americans in it, and started for that. And the ground was a little bit soft. Every time we pick up our feet, it seemed like 10 pounds of mud, you know. It was kind of slow, but we made it there, so we were pretty safe then. We got out of that one. But they just, that infantry lieutenant just made a big mistake.
So everybody else, those other 4 tanks and 5 tank destroyers, they didn't make it.
They didn't make it out. No, I don't know what their casualties were, but they didn't make it.
So do they bring in like AAA to bring out the tank, or where does the tank go? Like, do they take it back?
Yeah, if they were worth doing something with, they'd take it back and repair it, yeah. Yeah.
And then how do you get a new tank?
Well, we'd have to go back to the depot someplace and pick one up. And so then we did finally get a tank with a 76 millimeter gun, a little higher velocity, which helped some. And but that was pretty much going into Germany. Just one town we were in, you know, it was a time of the year, it was kind of funny. One of the guys, he'd grown up in the country, out in the country, and there was an old sow running around loose in that town. So we got some fresh pork. He did a pretty good job as a butcher, and so it wasn't all just You know, there was a motorcycle there. One of the guys liked to ride a motorcycle, and there wasn't much activity going around that place. So,
how'd your stomach take that fresh pork after all those, we call them sea rations, all that time?
Oh my God, you'd have to, better be a slit trench close.
Oh, it didn't go very well.
And it was winter time too.
What was it, the sea rations were that bad, or your stomach just weren't used to eating?
Stomach just wasn't used to that.
So what did the Army give you to eat on a regular basis?
C rations and K rations.
So what are in those?
Well, C rations was a package of crackers and I don't know what all now, but a little can of cheese, I suppose, something like that. And that was a K ration. C rations were a can of bacon or vegetables of some kind, you know. But otherwise, we could, if there wasn't anybody in the towns, we could find in the houses. We'd find some eggs sometime, and
so you all scavenged a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And that was okay.
Yeah. One time there was a pen of rabbits in this town. And one of the guys, the same guy, he's a pretty good cook. So after watching the rabbits have a little fun, we put the males with the females. And then after that, we going to have rabbit dinner and got the thing all set up and just ready to eat. And we had to move. We didn't have time to eat the doggone food after it was set up. That happened a couple times. So. And especially Thanksgiving that happened. We were already, they brought our meal up and from headquarters. We were just ready to eat, and they said, there's some infantry in trouble down the line, a little town, you guys have to go. Well, there wasn't any problem when we got there. It was taken care of. But
thanks a lot then, huh?
Yeah. We went down that hill toward that town with the front 3 tanks, the guns were forward, and the back 2, they were back. We didn't know if the Germans were in those.
Okay, go.
When you got closer to Germany, do you think the German troops, did they stiffen up any?
They did at first.
You know, since they were
they did
protecting them.
Protecting their country. They didn't want us there, but they finally found out it wasn't going to happen anyway. So, yeah. Thank you, Kim. And yeah.
Did you have respect for the German troops? I mean, how did you, or did you try to dehumanize them, or how?
Well,
how
after
did you deal with that?
Prisoners, we'd visit with them some. They like to talk about going home. They're glad the war was over. They like to talk about their families, and they were good to visit with. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So when you first got onto the beach in France.
What's that? Lots of hazards.
Yeah. He's waiting for the clock. But
yeah. We've got a clock just like that at my parents' house. Okay, should be good.
There you go.
So when you got on the beach in France, how long was it before you actually saw Germans? Like when you were...
Before I saw Germans?
Yeah.
Well, it was, we saw some dead Germans along the road, you know. But to see German troops, it really was a while because they were on a retreat. And I was trying to think back, and probably we saw a couple of snipers up in the hills one day, one place there. As after the breakthrough out of the hedgerows. But otherwise, we saw some there when I was telling you about when we were surrounded. There were some tried to charge our tanks. They must have been on dope or something. And
they tried to charge your tank? I mean,
with their guns, yeah. They come out of there was kind of a draw there. They come up out of that draw toward our tanks. I don't know what they were thinking about.
And you just, the troops with you shot them, or I mean?
We used our 30 calibers.
Oh.
Yeah.
They were out of their mind.
So you just did the machine gun, and then the guy next to you shot the big cannon?
No, I used a machine gun and a big cannon both.
Okay.
And there was a 50 caliber mounted on top of the tank. And with the 30 caliber was with the coaxially mounted with the 75 millimeter gun.
So did you have like empty shells all over inside your tank?
Well, yeah, they'd kick out on, of course this side was pretty well covered where I was, but they'd kick out on the other side back, yeah. Sometimes they'd be pretty smoky and, yeah. The most we fired at one time, I think, was when we were shooting at those German tanks when we were up top of that hill. And we fired pretty fast, pretty regular for, must have been about 8 shells we kicked out there. Otherwise, there was, we didn't shoot that many at one time. One time it was kind of interesting on that breakthrough. I didn't think about that one, but this evening it was quiet. And it was right after Le Mans, before we'd gotten up to Falaise Gap. And we pitched a tent. Thought, boy, this is nice, you know. And we walked up on a hill, and it was so quiet. Well, a German plane went over. One of those, we call them bed check Charlies. They were like our Piper Cubs. And, but that didn't seem to bother. So we went to sleep in a tent. Well, it wasn't long. Toward midnight, we woke up, and we could hear Germans. And their mission was to wipe us out. And they found out afterward, well, they took our tank up. There was a infantry general had a CP, and they wanted a couple tanks up in front of that. So they took our tank up, and on one side there were trees along one side. And so we got up there before it was daylight, and we camouflaged with branches and stuff the front of our tank. And started to get daylight, and we saw something move up ahead of us. Well, there were our whole battalion was there, A Company, B Company, C Company headquarters, and we hadn't expected something like this, so we really weren't set up, and we were half afraid to shoot because they might hit in their own troops. So this vehicle come across, and we didn't know whether to fire at it or not. So the infantry general got on the tank. He said, "Yeah, go ahead and let them have it." So we fired, but we got one shot off, and they must have suspected something, and they must have had their gun on our tank from someplace, because they hit right by the shells. Ammunition was along the wall, and they hit right into there. So we had to get out of the tank, and there were trees, a whole grove of trees back and forth there, and there had been some infantry in that group. They'd dug slit trenches different places, and our tank blew up. But there happened to be a slit trench I jumped into, and God, there was a little dirt on the side. The machine gun fire knocked that dirt down off that thing. It kind of wasn't very deep. Scrambled, and after it quieted down, I walked back a little bit, and there was one of the guys from the kitchen, like nothing ever happened. He had a book, and he was stretched out with his feet up on the side, you know, reading a book. Piper Cub was sitting over in the field. He couldn't get any place, you know. But we got out of it all right, and we took care of together. Well, I took care of the Germans that had tried to knock us out, and they weren't any factor anymore then.
Were you with the same crew the entire time you were there?
Pretty much, yeah. Till one of the fellows got killed, and then
what happened to him?
He was a bow gunner, assistant driver, and going into town, a shell hit front.
Hit the tank you were in?
Yeah.
Oh my.
And so he got killed, and then another.
So he got killed while you were in the tank?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! And they fortunately didn't get anybody else.
No, no.
Oh my goodness.
There was one time we got our tank knocked out, and there was another fellow needed a gunner, so they asked me to be his gunner, and that was when we'd gotten into that place. We were kind of surrounded by the Germans, so I wasn't with the same crew at that time. Otherwise, our crew pretty much survived. The rest of us did, yeah.
So did you live in your tanks? Like basically, like where did you sleep?
In the tank. A lot of time, unless we get into a town where it was sleeping in a bed sometimes, you know, we'd pull guard outside of one of the people in the town. Generally though, underneath the tank a lot of times. And it was kind of hard to sleep in the tank because you had hard to sit up, you know, on that seat where the gunner was, and the floor was corrugated iron, so, but either underneath it or, I think the only time we pitched a tent was that time I was telling you about before. And otherwise, though, we'd get into a house, and it was cold. We'd find wood enough to build a fire, and so a lot of times we'd sleep in homes.
Well, they said that winter was unseasonably cold.
It was cold, yeah. It was really cold. Yeah. A lot of times we'd get behind our tank when we had, well, there were two different kind of engines. We had that, I think they call it right whirlwind or something. I don't know. It was where it was air cooled, where blow the air up through the tank or down through the tank, I think it was. And it was cold in that one. The other was a Ford engine, and we'd get behind that, the exhaust, we'd get our hands warm, get warmed up that way. Otherwise, they're pretty cold in the tank. And, sleep pretty good in the houses sometimes.
Oh my God. So before you went to France, how long were you in England?
In the service?
Well, I mean, yeah, you went from the U.S. to England. How long were you doing? Did you do like practice drills and stuff while you were in?
Well, we did some of that, yeah. In England, we did a lot of marching. And then there was some English gun, I don't remember what it was. We did some work with that. We never did have an occasion to use it, but we did learn how to use it. And we didn't do any work with our tanks in England. And we'd move pretty regular, and well, like I say, we'd move 5 times from up where we were down to Southampton.
We talked about this a little bit before, but they had Patton come in with inflatable tanks. Can you tell me what you thought about that?
With what?
They had those giant inflatable tanks to make people think that the invasion was coming from someplace else.
Yeah, I didn't really know a lot about those, but I saw more on TV here than I did back there, where yeah, they bring tanks and trucks, and to make the Germans think that that's where Patton was ready to do a staging area from. And it really fooled the Germans, I think, instead of going into the area where we did.
So the Siegfried Line, is that between France and Germany? What is that?
Yeah, there was, after the first war, I think it was after the war, the French built the Maginot Line. And then opposite that, I don't know how far it was Germans built the Siegfried Line. And it was to keep getting into Germany. There were a lot of those big concrete, big tooths sticking up like that. They'd have to blow them out, and so we could get through there. And
they look like giant dinosaur teeth or something.
Mm-hmm. They'd go up about, maybe, I can't remember, so high. And the pillboxes, of course, scattered through the countryside there. But we didn't have too much problem there. The infantry pretty well had taken care of that part of it when we were going through the Siegfried Line. Thank heavens for that.
All right, I'm going to change angle time. Okay. Is it the Moselle River?
Moselle, yeah, we crossed the Moselle one time. It was pretty well flooded, and there was a big fort up there. Fort Königsmacher was up north of us up the river where we were going to cross. We had to wait for a while, and finally the water got down enough, I guess they put us on little barges like big pontoon boats to go across. We loaded the back end with ammunition, and the infantry were over on the other side. They needed help, so they took our tanks across. Well, it was kind of scary to go, but we were lucky, no problems. And we crossed the Moselle another time, but it wasn't any problem. And, they built the pontoon bridge for that one.
So this was the engineers that did that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the Rhine River, they had a pontoon when we went across there. Saar River, we crossed the Saar River at Saarlautern, and we had some tanks across, didn't have all of them across, and that was at the time of Bastogne. So they needed help up there, so they told us, get all your tanks back across you can. What you can't get back, why blow up? And they wanted us up there as fast as we could get there. We went that mostly at night, so the Germans didn't know what troops were going that way, I guess.
Now when you say Bastogne, was that when they were encircled, trapped by the Germans?
Uh-huh.
And what was that, the Argonne Forest, or what was that?
Ardennes.
Ardennes Forest?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're told, like, the Battle of the Bulge, that they had Germans disguised as Americans.
They had a lot of our uniforms. Yeah, even MPs. Yeah, and they changed signs, road signs, and they tried to make it pretty confusing. We were on the south side, and then I don't know what our objective was, but whatever we could do. But then we went northeast around the east side of Bastogne, a little town called St. Vith. And there wasn't anything standing in that place except maybe some smokestacks, chimneys and stuff. It just was pretty well bombed out. It was sad to see it. But that was pretty much, we got fired at quite often, shelled quite often at night, it seemed like, but otherwise we didn't. One of our platoon had run into some Germans on our left side, and they come out of it okay, but we didn't run into any problem where we were. Saw a lot of tanks that were an awful mess inside. It was pretty scary to see what had happened, at the breakthrough.
So was there a giant influx of Germans? Like when they said the Battle of the Bulge, did you find a lot more combat at that time?
A lot more what?
Combat. Did you feel like you're like, okay, they're definitely fighting us more intensely now than they did before?
Oh, from then on, they were pretty much going retreat, and we didn't really run into too much problem. We ended up after Bastogne, we had a couple towns, and then we ended up in Czechoslovakia after the war, and we stayed there. Those people sure were happy. They treated us, they fed us, and one day people were kind of upset with what was going on, because you could tell something was bothering them. They said the Russians are coming, and that scared the heck out of them. Well, we'd bypassed some horses, and our government had given horses to the Russians, so the troops there, probably 50 to 100, maybe 50, and they stayed on the main street when they went through that town, so there weren't any problem. But
so did you meet Russian soldiers?
Well, in one town I did, yeah. He had a bottle of vodka with him.
And here, what you'd expect.
Have a taste. Oh my God. I couldn't handle that stuff. It burned all the way down.
So did you guys try to talk to each other?
Not very much, no. He was friendly. I don't know what he was doing there, but...
just one Russian, just one soldier?
Yeah. I don't know where anybody else was, but I just had run into him. Yeah.
So, like, do you know who found the gold or the art that was in the salt mine?
I think it was our infantry division found it. There were some people that had told them when they got there that something was going on in that place, and so we had the good luck of guarding that for I don't know, 10 days maybe, something like that, maybe 2 weeks, and there wasn't any activity. A lot of brass, of course, come to see what was there. A lot of artwork, and it was a salt mine, I think, but they had this gold stored there, and so many things that were value from France and other countries that they picked up, and So we didn't go in there. The only thing we got out of it was a German paratrooper knife. There must have been a bunch of those in there, so they gave us one of those.
Did you pick up any other like German like knickknacks or anything?
Yeah, I picked up a little, and then we'd have it in a tank. Then the tank would get hit and burn up, maybe. So I didn't. After a while, you didn't bother too much picking up stuff. I did pick up a pistol, that I still have that, and then had a little odds and ends, you know, like insignias the Germans wore, and I did pick up a parade, I don't know what they call it, parade knife, dress knife that they used, soldiers used. It was kind of a fancy thing, and otherwise I didn't. Some fellows really went after those, but it was scary a little bit, you know. You didn't know if where we were going, somebody was dead, they might be booby-trapped, and I really felt pretty safe sticking close to the tank when I was in town.
Yeah. Sounds prudent.
So was most of the time you were firing at people, or people were firing at you, were you in the city or were you in the country?
Well, sometime we were going into a town, and mostly that's when it happened. Either they'd be firing at us as we went into the town, or we'd be firing back at them. The other way, that one time we were, that German outfit was sent out after us. Of course, that was all outside, and I mean, they were in the open field. Going into town, sometime we'd, when we get close enough, we could hit the church steeple, which a lot of times is too bad, but then that's where observation people were, so that was a target as we went into towns.
Oh, you mean when you went into a town, you had like a general directive to take the tallest building in case it's used as an observation or a sniper?
We did that a couple times. We did, yeah, and yeah. Or the general didn't, but our tank commander, because our objective was to get into the town, and that was something he thought might stop us. So he said, "Take the church steeple," and yeah.
So how many tanks did you have altogether?
I was in my 5th one when it was over, so I was lucky. Of course, the turret the track got knocked off, so that wasn't too bad. One, we were going into that town on the Saar River, and there were a lot of Germans. We had troops with us. We got into some woods, and we come down out of the woods through a hill and at an angle into the main street of the town. And there were some buildings. There was an opening between the buildings, and we thought, well, we'd go in there on the main street. And our tank was on the left, and there was one back behind on the right. We got on the main street, and before it could get the gun turned around, why, they had an anti-tank gun down the street, so they got hit under our turret. So we got off the back of the tank and got behind the building. And it was funny, there were some infantry fellows there, and they argued, now somebody has to go in that building, see if there are Germans in there. Well, one said, well, I went in last time, it's your turn this time. And they went up over the little porch. There was a little stoop in the back. He got up over that, threw some grenades in, and there weren't any Germans in there, but there were, when that thing opened up, honest to God, there were a lot of people leaving the area. You know, they had wagons and carts or families. It was just sad to see that sort of thing. It just pulling out of the town, because it was been a lot of shelling going on through that time. That was just before we went up to Bastogne, you know, and yeah, I was lucky to get out of the tanks.
I mean, was there times that you actually thought, this is it, I'm done, I'm getting ready to go meet my maker?
Yeah, there were probably several times.
Was that right? Well, and probably one when your pants were on fire.
yeah, that was because we didn't know what was going to happen next after that. And of course, that time that they kind of had us, that German outfit come after us at night there, why, it was kind of touch and go in the woods there too, because we get out of the tank, didn't have a gun, and felt pretty helpless there.
So what'd you do?
Well, I got into that slit trench, and stayed till it started to cool off a little bit, and then moved on back toward the back, and then we went to our headquarters where.
So you just kind of, you laid in the slit trench because they were shooting at you?
Yeah, they were shelling, and they were shooting machine guns. And, yeah.
So then you were just 5 guys walking down the road with no gun, no nothing?
Well, there was our tank, then there was another tank, and then over on some woods on the other side, there was another platoon. I don't know what, they had a tank knocked out, and at least there was one, and I don't know what happened to the guys over there. We scattered when we got into that wooded area, and I know you just want to take care of yourself because there wasn't much you could do.
How long did you have to lay in the slit trench?
Not too long. I was
Really,
yeah.
Thrifty and hardworking.
That's pretty nice to have that.
Oh, it was. I tell you, I could sit and listen to her for hours.
So can we start from when we were in Czechoslovakia and then we went it was
Back to Amberg?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about some of the activities. There was, of course, played ball and horseback riding. There was a lake close to town, so we spent some time there. And then I started to tell you about this old gal with a bicycle. And she was kind of like an old shyster, and we'd take things from the kitchen, like we'd take bacon and I don't know what all, but anyway, she'd put in the basket of her bicycle, she'd take off, and she'd bring back a bottle or two of beer sometime. I had a couple bottles of beer one time, my buddy and I had. Honest to God, it tasted good. But really didn't have much. There was one old guy, I don't know if he was a teacher, professor or something, he kind of opened up his home that he let us come in and lounge around some, and he hit a bottle of wine, and then there was some Air Force guys that decided they'd make some whiskey, and they liked our combat jackets, so they'd maybe trade, so it was the awfulest tasting stuff. Otherwise, we didn't have much booze, no. We never did except what we'd find. Of course, sometimes we'd find wine places.
Kind of scavenge it from here and there. But.
Yeah, at one time we went along that, it was the Saar River, and we'd walk down toward the river, and then when we come back, there was a little shed there along the street. We went in and took a look. There were some barrels of wine, and underneath we found a bottle of champagne and a bottle of wine underneath the barrels. So we'd have a feast. Well, outside there was some steps up and a little like a doghouse up there. There's a couple of chickens in it. So we picked up a chicken, thought, well, we'll have chicken dinner. And this guy that liked to cook, honest to God, the chicken was so tough we couldn't eat it. It must have been an old hen.
How's the champagne?
The champagne was good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So when you were in Czechoslovakia, you met the Russian guy. Did you meet any other foreign?
No.
Okay.
No, and we didn't get to talk to the Russians. Of course, they went right on. They didn't pay attention to anybody. They probably had orders not to speak to anybody. They went through town.
So it was Amberg. That's the name of the town.
Amberg, yeah.
Okay. Was there kids and stuff there too, playing with you all day, or?
What was that?
Was there little kids that wanted to play with you too, or?
We didn't get into that part of the
Okay.
city that much. No. No, they weren't close to where our barracks were. They were kind of out at the edge of town. That apartment complex that we'd walk to, we had to walk maybe half, 3/4 of a mile across. We could see across the field, and from there, well, we took our tanks to Nuremberg after that, and while we were in Amberg, and God, that place had a lot of damage to it. We didn't get to spend any time in Nuremberg. We just took our tanks up and they brought us back. But it was kind of an interesting trip. It was about 40 miles north. I think it was northwest of where we were.
You talked earlier a little bit about the concentration camp. Were you just guarded it, or what all did you do?
Yeah, one town we went into, there was, of course, it was mostly Polish, and they hadn't been fed very good. And when they opened the gate of that place, they were tickled to death to get out. I don't know why or where they were sending them, but they probably had a place for them. And then this one, I don't remember the name of the place where these, they had these ovens. And they were about, like the size of a big walk-in cooler or freezer. And there wasn't, of course they were empty when we were there. But you could see there were just a row of them. I don't know how many there had been, maybe 20 in a row. And it was, you could see.
Did you know what they were used for then?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we knew what they were used for, yeah.
Did it affect your perspective at all, like why we were fighting the war?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
So at what point did you say goodbye to your tank? When was the last time?
After it was all over?
Yeah.
Well, when we took them to Nuremberg, and then that was it, yeah.
Can you tell us how the point system works again, so you...
When we got out?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we got 5 points for Purple Heart, and 5 points for Bronze Star, or 5 points for other medals, and 5 points, I think it was 5, I don't remember, for each battle, like Normandy and Ardennes and Central Europe and so on. We had 5 of those, and I don't know how they added up. I got 85 points, I know, so it was enough to get out pretty quick. I was lucky. And we went from there, we got in boxcars, and we went to Marseille in France. And there was a camp there. We stayed a while. And we stayed pretty close to camp. I didn't want any problems. I wanted to go home. But some of the fellows, of course, they were anxious, anxious to get into the city, and there were some problems. They had some pretty good times, I guess. But most generally what went on in the camp we were in was just poker and gambling. So some of the guys got pretty well when they come home. And then we come home on USS George Washington, a pretty good size, pretty nice ship.
They talked a lot about black market stuff. Did people come home with more stuff than they shouldn't have?
You mean from
the war?
I don't know, probably did.
Okay.
I didn't, I know. I was just glad to get myself home.
Can we go back and talk a little bit about like right before the war even started? So when you got drafted, where did you go to take your physical and everything?
Went up to Great Lakes Naval Training Station in Chicago. And from there then went to Fort Knox.
Did you have to sit down and like take written exams to see what your most...
Yeah.
Okay. So what were those exams like?
Okay, I don't remember. Just like you take in school, like the test that you take, for what do you call them? I can't...
SATs or
SAT tests, yeah, similar to that, if I remember. I don't know why they sent me to Fort Knox, but for some reason. Anyway, it worked out okay.
So when Pearl Harbor happened, just describe that.
Describe what?
Pearl Harbor, like what were you thinking?
Oh, well, that day we were over at my wife's parents. My brother-in-law, older than I was, and of course that was pretty doggone sad. And we were pretty upset about that, and so that was just a darn sad day. You wonder what was going to happen next. You knew we'd be going into service, and I know the next day my wife's brother and I think 1, 2, 3 of his buddies enlisted in the service. It didn't take them long. They thought at that time they were probably 30 years old or so.
Did you want to join right away?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, if you're married,
Yeah, I wasn't in any hurry to go, and I knew I would, but I wasn't in any hurry. And,
So pretty like everyone wanted to go to war. Because it seemed like America didn't like it. They teach us in school that America didn't want to go to war at all, like most of the people. And then after Pearl Harbor, everyone did want to go. Is that what you thought?
Well, after Pearl Harbor, it made a lot of difference. Of course, we knew we were in it, we were going to be in it, and it just made a lot of difference in the feeling. Before you thought, well, maybe it wouldn't happen, but then when it did happen, then of course you had to do something, and
might change a little. So where was your basic training at?
Fort Knox in Kentucky.
Okay. So
We had 8 weeks infantry and 4 weeks tank training, and that wasn't too much. And of course, what we learned basically was what went on inside the tank. Like we could tear the gun down, put it together, how to zero the gun in, and how that worked. And driver, we did practice driving some. And of course they left the field work and that sort of thing with the officers, and so we didn't get into that part of it too much, just the basics of the tank.
So were you okay with people yelling at you and all that, or
Was what?
like drill sergeants yelling at you and stuff, or was it just part of the deal?
I got along pretty good.
Okay.
Some of the guys didn't. Well, some of them, they didn't want to get along, so they didn't. And but we got along. We had some good ones, and they were good to work with.
So what was your day-to-day like? What did you do when you woke up when you're in basic
In
training?
basic training? Mm-hmm. Well, of course, we got out for a roll call first thing, and then exercise and breakfast, and then maybe some kind of training, whether it was infantry training. We'd, of course, do a lot of hiking, and learned the M1, the carbine, machine gun, how those things work, how to tear them down, put them back together. And that went pretty much through the 8 weeks. Lots of drills, and with different kind of equipment. And so we were in darn good condition. I'd worked in a sawmill while I was waiting. We stayed with my grandparents. There was a sawmill in that town, so I worked there for a while, upended railroad ties. So I was in pretty good shape so I didn't have any problem getting condition. And the tank training was, like I said, was pretty much just the basics of the tank. And otherwise, the day-to-day activity, we had spare time, and we could get passes into Fort Knox. And one time there were 3 of us. We wanted to go home. 2 of them lived I think in Michigan. But we were going to Chicago on a train. We weren't able to get a pass. So we thought, well, we won't be missed. So we got on the train. Well, the MPs come. They were coming through. So we saw these ladies sitting in a so we sat down with the ladies like we were traveling with them, so everything was okay.
Did the ladies know that you were doing that, or they none the wiser?
Yeah, I met Martha in Chicago that time, and wasn't any problem going back.
So the infantry school and the tank school were both at Fort Knox?
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you train with the men that you would later fight with, or are these totally different?
No, after we were replacements, then we pretty well split up. There wasn't anybody that I ended up with, really. There was one fellow that I'd heard of, a pretty good friend in basic training afterwards, and he was in that column that was, I don't know, it was Patton, one of the officers had a son or somebody that had been captured, and they were sent to 5 tanks, I think it was, sent to bring them back. And they got him picked up, but they got ambushed on the way back and got knocked out. But this was a pretty good buddy of mine, but he got killed in that. I don't know how I heard about that, but I did. And otherwise, I didn't see anybody that went in with. And
did you want to be in the tank? Did you, like, out of all the jobs in the Army, you're like, okay.
Oh yeah, it was probably as good as anything. Yeah, I'd rather be in a tank than the infantry. I thought, well, it's pretty safe, and it wasn't too bad. Yeah.
5 tanks later, you're still at
5 tanks later, I was still able to be on my feet.
Yeah, there you go.
I was very fortunate with our tank commander. He was, he knew what was going on. It's conservative, and he's pretty careful.
We're gonna back to when you're in England and you're ready to go over for D-Day. Did everyone know that we're gonna invade sometime? We just don't know when.
Yeah, we got on the boat there in Southampton, and of course went over to I don't remember just which one it was, but anyway, I remember we were walking. We walked up this long hill. And we no sooner got up there, and one of the fellows we were with took his, I think we had carbines, and he took his carbine and aimed at his foot. And that was all. He didn't want to be in the Army.
Okay.
Oh, he shot himself in the foot.
Yeah, yeah. We slept in tents there while we were replacements, and we had to pull guard. And that was pretty scary. You know, the first time we'd been out like that, and pretty black at night. You could picture some German slipping up behind you while they could put you pulling guard. But it worked out okay. And then we were in this replacement depot. Then they called us 12th Tank Battalion needed replacements, so they called us, some of us there for interviews. And that's how I ended up with the 712th. They were attached mostly to the 90th Infantry Division through most of the way through to Czechoslovakia. They were a good outfit.
Okay. So did you, just throughout your experience, did you have, when you got onto the beach in France, were there a lot of German POWs?
No.
No, okay.
Mm-mm. There was more. The thing I remember most about, we went down off the side of that boat, of course, on a rope ladder, and got on the landing bars, went in, but there were those balloons over. My Lord, the bay was covered with those, of course, to protect the ships coming in, you know. And
so was this for planes, or why were the balloons there?
They were what?
Why were the balloons there?
Oh, to protect the planes, or protect the ships and the troops unloading and so on, protect them from the fighter planes that could come in and strafe, so they couldn't do it with those.
Oh, they get tangled up in the balloons then? Was that the idea?
Yeah, there were just a lot of them. And
okay.
I don't know if they called them balloons. They looked like small dirigibles maybe or whatever, but they were just...
they look like Goodyear blimps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so after the war, you went to reunions a few times?
we had several. Yeah, we had some good reunions. Just really, and now the only ones they have now are a few of the fellows on the East Coast that go to Florida around the holidays. They get together there, maybe half a dozen fellows or so, and we hear from them occasionally. So we could correspondence with one of them anyway. And but otherwise, we did have really good reunions. Went to Fort Knox one time. They treated us real well. And then we went to Wichita, Kansas. Got to visit the Boeing plant and the Air Force base there. And they took us on some good trips. Boys Town one time, and South Bend, Indiana was an interesting one. And they got the old Studebaker, the museum there with very interesting sights and old cars, wagons, and whatever. And yeah, I miss the reunions, but then, of course, so many years back that there wouldn't be enough. That's about it as far as reunions were.
Okay. So when you were there, were you able to able to send mail back to the U.S.?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you had to be careful what you wrote because they checked it out. You couldn't say too much. And it did seem like some people got a lot more in their letters than that we were supposed to get in. But excuse me.
Oh, sure. Did you have anything? I think I'm through everything I got.
Are you through? I just had some general questions more than anything else, and I've been like a dumbass. I took off and forgot my glasses. You don't have like a magnifying glass or anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just tell me where it's at. I'll get it.
No, I don't know for sure which drawer it's in. Ship.
Yeah.
I'll just carry it over here.
I'll hang on to it.
Okay, there you go.
I got it.
If you've got time.
I forgot I had an anchor on there.
Good to go.
All right.
Chip, this chair over here.
Oh, I'm good. I just needed my stupid glasses. I guess I just had a few general questions. Like,
What if I turned the kitchen light on? Would that help him?
Do you want the light, or are you okay?
No, I'm okay. It's not light. It's magnification.
Oh.
It's yeah, it's the focus. Yeah, it's just
Okay.
I don't have very good reading vision anymore. So, you know, when you kept talking about your group, what is that called?
Crew?
Platoon, or is it a company? Or
Just our tank crew. We were in a battalion. There were five we have 5 tanks in our platoon, and there was 1st, 2nd, 3rd platoon, and then there was we had maintenance, and we had of course in the battalion we had a maintenance in the kitchen, and in our company there was A company, B company, and C company, and headquarters company, and there were in C company there were 5 tanks, and I don't recall exactly how they all were lined up, but and there were 1st, 2nd, 3rd platoon, so there would be 3 platoon would be 15 tanks, and, if I remember.
They always try to keep you guys together as a platoon?
Pretty much, oh yeah, pretty much, yeah. Our platoon worked together separately. Our battalion was attached to an infantry, our company was attached to an infantry battalion, and so we had A company, B company, C company work with different groups in their battalion, and like I say, we worked pretty much the same one. So they were.
I guess I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
I was curious when you guys had reunions.
What's that?
When you guys had reunions after the war, did the battalion get together?
Yeah, it started that. We started here. We had our first one here in Galesburg. The fellow in Kansas that was our platoon leader wanted to get together, and we thought, well, we'd have our group here. So we had, I don't know, there were probably 10 or 12 of us, I suppose, here. And then our group kind of grew from that, our company. And then some of the other companies had gotten together, so when they decided to have battalion reunions. So then we ended up with battalion reunions, which was much better because we could get better service places and could see more things.
So is it now the battalion that's what's left then, that's still kind of having reunions, or the guys still just in your company now?
Well, now it's just whatever anybody with the battalion that was on the East Coast, they'd get together because you get pretty well acquainted with the ones that from the area. So there'd be ones from different companies that would get together. There was only, like I say, 6 or 8 of them that get together in Florida in the wintertime.
So you were in the 712th Armored Division?
No, we were just a 712th Tank Battalion. And it was before the war. There were it was the 10th. It was 10th Cavalry, and then they were split up. Of course, after they didn't use the cavalry, then it was split up into the Tank Battalion, and we were the 712th. I don't know what the rest of them. I don't know what happened to them.
And then you joined the 90th Infantry then, or how did that work? No,
we were attached. Now, at different times, we were attached to different. Maybe for a short time, we'd be attached to a different infantry division. Part of the outfit was attached to, I think it was 82nd Airborne or 101st Airborne right after the invasion for a while. We were with, I think it was maybe the 8th Infantry. I'm not sure what other one we were attached to, through the war, but not for a very long period of time. Just when they'd be shuffling things around, like up at the Bulge. It could have been separated a little bit for a while because there are a lot of different things happening there. But always we were fortunate to be with the 90th most all the time, and they were so good to work with. That, I remember one time, that town we went into on the Saar River, we started down this hill into this pretty open. We didn't have any problem getting into that town, but well, not until we got in there. But the major from the which battalion, with the 90th anyway, he rode in on the barrel of our tank, and we got into that town, and they were shelling the goddamn place, and it was a big intersection. There were streets coming, 1, 2, 3, or 4 different ones in that intersection. We were sitting with our tank there. He was out in the middle of that intersection grilling a German prisoner, and he made the guy take his belt off, and then he put his pistol up to his mouth, and he wanted them to talk. And of course, he was far enough away we didn't hear that conversation. But he was a tough old guy, I'll tell you. And they were shelling and knocking the heck out of the buildings around the area, but it didn't bother him too much.
Unperturbed, huh?
Major Hamilton, he was a good one.
Well, now here on September 21st, 2012, from your battalion, there's maybe 8 or 9 guys left then from the battalion.
Well, I don't know other parts of the country because, you know, some of them are from Texas and Indiana, Michigan, different places. But I don't know what's left.
Be hard to keep track of everybody.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I read that the 90th had lots of people from Texas and Oklahoma.
It was a TO, Texas, Oklahoma is what originated one. Yeah. Yeah. Tough hombres. TO, tough hombres. Yeah, Patton said that was one of his favorites. Of course, he probably told that to all of them. They called us the Armored Fist of the 90th Infantry Division.
Hey, when you said you had to stand guard, was it true that if you fell asleep while you're on guard duty that, I mean, you potentially could be arrested or worse? Or
Well, I suppose you could. I don't know.
Nobody ever fell asleep on guard duty, did they? Huh?
I don't. Well, we had one guy that he wanted to sleep through it. Well, that was when we went in that town, Saar, and we got our tank knocked out, and we were at the edge of town, and we didn't know what the heck was going on around, so we thought, there were 4 of us, and we thought we better pull guard. So this one guy, Risto Radovich, he was from the kitchen. He was a replacement because one of the guys, the one that got killed later, had gone to Paris for a pass. And Radovich was sleeping in a pen downstairs. There were pens for the animals underneath the house. And part of the underneath were basement. Part of the basement and in another area was the animal. He'd sleep in a goddamn pen. He wasn't going to pull guard. So with the 3 of us, well, of course, he didn't sleep. We'd wake him up. Kept waking him up, but the old rascal, he just wouldn't. He just wouldn't do it.
So did you have passes too to go to Paris or anything?
I went to Paris once, yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
So where were you at, and then all of a sudden you went back to Paris?
Well, I don't know if I could tell you. I don't remember. I had ever thought back about that. When I was there, I was going into a restaurant, and a fella come out that was from North Henderson, and I'd known him back there, so we had a good visit. He was with another outfit that happened to be there on a pass.
When they gave you a pass, was it up to you to find your transportation back and forth?
No, they took us. They took us back and forth. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I don't remember if they found our places to stay or told us where to play. They probably did. I don't recall that either. But, I remember crossing the street one time, a couple of us, this old gal, she was older. She was standing on the street. She was looking for somebody to go to bed with.
Oh, but you need the money, huh?
Yeah.
So did you guys have like a rotation in your tank? Everybody took a pass at a different time?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember. Well, yeah. I was thinking of our tank commander. I don't think he took one, but he went home early because he had enough. I don't know how it happened to, but he did. And
if you had to do it all over again, would you have joined the army or got drafted, or?
Well, if I had to do something, it probably would. Yeah.
Would you? Are you glad that you had the experience, or that you got to serve your country?
Oh, you bet. Yeah, it's worth everything that happened. Yeah. Yeah, I feel good about it, and yeah, it just. I'm glad that we could do what we did, and it's too darn bad that things happen the way they are today. It's a darn shame what's going on, but I feel sorry for the young guys because they're not fighting wars like we fought. You know, it's altogether different, and I know they wonder sometime what the heck they're there for. It's just sad that they go over to those countries that been fighting. They'll never quit fighting. The guys go over there and lose their lives. It's just a crime. But
they don't come back to the same adulation that you guys received.
no,
Yeah.
no, altogether different feeling. Because the people were so glad to see us when we got back, because we'd won a big war, and it's just, I think, probably altogether different than the young fellows coming back today. I think the Vietnam veterans went through that. You know, they had a tough time.
No.
It just didn't seem like they didn't feel like they were accepted. And I know the service companies, the VFW and the American Legion, sure didn't want it that way. They tried to, encourage those people to join, but they just seemed to back off for a while. But I think it's maybe getting over that some now. But
was it easy for you to reassimilate back into civilian life after being in the service, or was there an adjustment period, kind of?
I don't think there was. I was just glad to be back and to get lined up, to decide what profession, what you wanted to do when you get back. Of course, I'd been in the sales before and some livestock feed, and Father both said that I should go to Minneapolis and talk to Archer Daniels and Cargill for livestock feed business. So I made appointments and I went there, and Archer Daniels had a territory open in southern Wisconsin. It was dairy. Of course, we don't have dairy around here. I didn't know much about that. And Cargill had a territory open in central Illinois where I could headquarter in Galesburg. They only had 3 salesmen in Illinois, one in Springfield, one in Rockford. So I took that. They were new in the feed business, and so it was interesting. They spent a lot of money to get into it, and they were good to work for, so it was a good start. And,
you think was it fairly easy for most GIs when they came back home to find work, and for the most part?
Yeah, I think it was. Most of them, of course, the people that they'd worked for before they went were glad to take them back for what they'd done. They felt like they should if they wanted to go back into the same profession that they'd been in.
Oh, that's cool.
And
different than right now, it sounds like. Sounds like the poor guys coming back from Afghanistan, or they're having a tough time finding work.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a different world there too.
Yeah. It's just I just feel bad that they. I think they ought to bring them all back. Those countries, they've been fighting forever, and they will be.
Thousands of years.
Yeah. Think of the money that we're spending in Afghanistan. Think of the money we spent in Iraq for their headquarters, for their people that we've trained, and they'll probably turn against us as soon as we're gone.
I didn't think so. Yeah, they're kind of in a sticky place. The ones that helped us are in big trouble, probably. Well, did you ever fight? You talked about when you went through the Falaise Gap that on one side there was you, and on the other side there was the Canadians and the Poles. Did you ever couple up with any other countries and fight?
No. No. That was the closest we ever came in contact with. Yeah. The British were always north of us, and so we never had contact with them.
So, did you have grandsons or sons or anything that wanted to join the military at all?
No, I had just a daughter.
Okay.
And so, no, I didn't have. Only had a cousin that was in. Of course, he was in the Merchant Marine, and he had some pretty good experiences, I think, too.
That's one thing. When you watch the TV shows and stuff, they always show going to war being so glamorous, and is there anything glamorous there?
I don't see anything glamorous about it.
Yeah.
You just get over there and do what you have to do, and you do what you're told to do, and hope things work out.
Is it true that under stress brings out the true character of people? You really see what they're made of. You probably saw that firsthand, I bet. People at their very best and people at their very worst.
A couple of times, yeah. Yeah, there was one lieutenant with this other platoon that was opposite us there. At one time we were kind of surrounded. But there, when we were in front of that German, or that General CP, and they were on the north side of us. He took off from his tank. He just got out of it and ran.
Oh, really?
And he was in charge of the 5 tanks. He was platoon leader. Otherwise, that one guy that I was telling you about, that
the major?
No, the one that wouldn't pull guard. You know, he was, when we had our tank hit, why, he was assistant driver's position. And we got in this, he didn't get out. And we thought maybe it's hurt or something. We got in this house, we could look out the window and we could see him. And we hollered at him. I don't know if we could see him. I suppose we could. Was trying to get out, but he kind of passed out, I guess. Finally, he woke up and he come calling out of the turret. But he didn't want a part of fighting. And
well, you probably saw examples of the other side of that coin too. People who exhibited extraordinary amounts of bravery.
Oh my God! Yeah, there was a fellow, he's part Indian. He was wild as could be. He was tank commander in another platoon. And honest to God, he wasn't afraid of anything, I don't think. And he lived through it. But God, he'd get, like Indians, he'd get drunk and he'd take off, be gone for a couple of days sometime.
And they tolerated that because
yeah, they did. Yeah, they tolerated it. I don't know why, but they did. God, he no sooner got home than I got a letter from his sister that he'd gotten killed in a motorcycle accident.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so he survived all that tough stuff he'd been through.
Yeah. That's incredible irony.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Did you ever meet any historically, or see any historically famous people that, you know, that now we'd look back and say, oh my, like any political figures or any war figures?
Patton's the main one.
You see Patton?
And then some of the generals, you know, McLean and I can't think of the name of several. We were with McLean and the other one, I can't think their name now, but we'd see them generally. Patton, we saw him a couple times.
Just he'd drive by to rally the troops, or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he'd be in his Jeep with all the stars on the bumper with his guns.
I mean, do you think that the people overall respected him, or?
Oh yeah, you're darn right. You're darn right they did, yeah.
What did you think of Patton?
Oh, I thought he was great, yeah. I thought we were fortunate to have somebody like that. You'd like to fight for somebody like that, you know.
Were you aware, you know, in the movie they talked about he went into the hospital and slapped a soldier?
Oh, we got that news, yeah.
Did you get that? You heard about that when you were there?
Yeah, I didn't pay much attention to it, but...
Do you think many of the soldiers did?
Yeah, I figured there probably was a reason to maybe... I didn't condemn the guy for what he did. I mean, he knew what he was doing. But,
so they had politically correct even back then, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is awesome stuff.
Thank you for doing this twice. I appreciate it. It's an honorable times. I think it's.
Well, I'm glad that. Well, thank you for taking the time. My gosh,
I think people are going to get a lot out of this, sharing your story, I think.
Okay.
Heaven forbid that our descendants have to be ever put in a situation like you were put into. If this ever happens, do you have any advice for them?
Well, just do what you have to do. I think just stick by your guns and do what you're supposed to do, and you always feel good about that. Otherwise, I don't know what kind of advice other than that.
Stay alive. Yeah. Fascinating stuff, Bob.